Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca Kelly and you're listening to the Everywhere We Go podcast. On this week's episode, I sit down with Elle Siobhan. I came across Elle's page through our self-build community on Instagram, a group of well-wishers who you can turn to for advice or information on everything you need to know about building a new home. But when Elle's son Ben overnight became a different baby, Elle found herself with no one to turn to. Countless sleepless nights, missed milestones and incorrect diagnoses led Elle to believe she was failing as a mother. And it wasn't until one day while feeding Ben that she noticed that he was having a seizure of some sort and by chance videoed it. Armed with this evidence, she went straight to A&E and Ben was diagnosed with West syndrome, a rare form of epilepsy in infants that, if not stopped by medicine, can cause severe brain damage. I love Elle's Home Before Time Insta page, and this story shows that no one knows what goes on behind the grid. Elle, you're the loveliest soul and have the heart of a lioness. Ben's road is still ahead of him, and I wish you, Ben and Neil, the very best of everything with it. Everywhere we go, people want to know who we are and where we come from. So who are you and where do you come from?
Hi, my name is Elle Siobhan and I'm originally from Kerry. I'm near Dingle and now I'm living in Cork.
What's taking you to Cork?
I'm asking myself the same question. I had to come here for work, Rebecca, and they haven't let me live it down. And I'm now here nearly 20 years. Imagine.
Oh my God.
Time flies. Time flies.
So tell me what it was like growing up in Kerry.
We had an amazing childhood. We had sheep in the back garden, your typical Kerry. Yeah, we had a great childhood. We were out in the country. We were a family of 8, so plenty of fights, plenty of friendships, plenty of fun. Probably broke my mum and dad's heart, but we had a great childhood. We were very close as a family. So,
and when you say a typical Kerry, what is it? Is a full on country?
It is full. Well, where I'm from, it's full on country. Yeah, you'd have a bus pass maybe twice a day, if even. I know. Now everybody tends to love Dingle, and there's floods of people in for New Year's Eve and summer. Like we say, summer that Dingle's packed and it's so busy. But you're talking about Main Street. There could be just no traffic moving in Main Street. Whereas, it's different in Cork, definitely. But and I even say that when I drive to Kerry, my driving changes once I go over the border. If there's tractors stopped in the middle of the road, you don't beep your horn, or farmers could stop to chat to each other, and you just go with the flow. I think it's more of a relaxed vibe, and yeah, it's lovely. I always said I'd move there. Not sure now, but I'd love to go home. Sure, Kerry always has a special place in my heart. So,
was it hard moving, and why did you move?
I was in boarding school, so I think the move wasn't that as difficult as it seems. I was in boarding school from about the age of 11 to 17, did my leaving cert. A very strict regiment in a boarding school. It was near Dingle, but I didn't mind it. My sisters will say different, but I didn't mind it. Definitely different to how other people would have grown up. We had nuns and we had mass every morning at 20/7, and you came down and you had a little job. It was all Las Gaeilge as well, Rebecca. So
oh my
Irish.
God.
Yeah. And you were penalised if you spoke a word of English. So yeah, I never thought of it as being any different, but I guess it was. So we were there. I was there for 5 years, and you slept there, and you were allowed home every weekend, every third weekend. And you had, I think it was, God, thinking back now, I think it was 3 weeks for Christmas and then your regular run-of-the-mill Easter and Halloween. But I suppose we have a great bond with Mom. My dad has passed away, but we had a great bond with Mom now. So, and then obviously, but I don't know, does it just make us want to go home a lot more as adults? So, Mom has never been alone in her own, I'd say, ever. We're always traipsing down the road to her. And even I used to joke to my husband that I was his winter wife, because I'm a teacher. So for summer, I used to pack my bags and hit the road for Kerry and stay down with Mom and Dad for the summer. So boarding school was interesting. Great education.
Did that make you want to go into teaching?
I've always loved kids, always wanted to do, I wanted to do psychology, so child psychology. Mm-hmm. Didn't get enough points for Trinity College, and I suppose I just didn't fall into teaching. I'm delighted. I'm nearly 20 years a teacher now, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't think unless I go down the psychology route of child psychology, but I don't think there's anything else I would love to do. You either love it or you hate it. I know people give out about teachers and their holidays, but you have to love it or you wouldn't do it. Definitely.
And can I ask you, with the religion in the mornings, because I always ask, and I know it's something you're not supposed to talk about really, but I'm not a devout Catholic, but I do believe in God and all of that. But so do you carry that through your life now, or is it something that's just there?
Yeah, well, my mom would be a devout Catholic. Yeah, I suppose I am Catholic, and I was raised Ben Catholic, and I don't think I would be the type of churchgoer that my parents would have been, but I do see it as an important part of my life. So God. Does that answer your question?
It really does, because I don't, the thing is now, in Dublin, and maybe I'm wrong, but where I'm from in Dublin, as an adult, we don't go to mass with our parents. My parents don't even go to mass anymore. They go for funerals and so on. And I know that during COVID, the local parish were doing Zoom. And sometimes I found myself going on to them and actually feeling a million times better after getting mass or just listening to them talk. So I wonder if it's, and I hate saying it, is it a country thing that people are still going to mass with their parents, at the age of 37 or 40 or,
Exactly. Oh, if I'm home, I'm going to mass. There's no question. You just do it. And my husband even laughs. My mom, even for Zoom, she'll be dressed and ready for mass. It's the thing in our house. If she's up minding Ben, she'll have the rollers on. She's ready to do her Zoom mass.
God, I love it.
Yeah. Do you know what I say though, Rebecca? I do think it's the kind of it is that meditation that people had long ago. And I don't think we have that. And I think we search for that, a bit of downtime, no phones, no technology. And I do find it, you just sit back. No, you mightn't listen to anything, but you sit and you're quiet for whatever it is, 30 minutes, depending on the priest. But it's a time just that you have to yourself and nobody's bothering you. And it's nice.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there now with the whole thing, because I do believe, God, and I'm probably going off on a tangent here, but I do believe that people are searching for something. They're searching for something through sea swims, through meditation, through manifestation. And really, I would probably find that in a church or in a mass, and you probably would as well.
It's just time for yourself. Yeah.
And come here, so let's get back to the conversation then, okay?
Yes.
So you went to Cork, and then, so obviously leaving then after the boarding school, it's not a big deal for you just to pack up your bags and go.
No, and I went to Mary I, which wasn't too different from the boarding school that I was in. But I thought there was loads of freedom, but others, again, would beg to differ. But I had a great college life. Have fabulous friends who I still have.
What is that place? Tell me about it. What is it?
Mary Immaculate College.
Okay, I don't know.
Never heard of it.
No, tell me.
It's a teaching college in Limerick. So I was there for 3 years. I did my Leaving Cert very young. I was 17 when I left for college. So I was a teacher before I was nearly 21.
Wow.
But I loved it.
And then move it on for me then and tell me then you're in Cork and you're teaching there. So you settled there. How quickly then do you meet your husband? Where do you meet your husband? Tell me about that.
I actually met him in Limerick, believe it or not. I met him when I was in college. So I actually lived with his first cousin, and he came down he was in UCC in Cork, and he came down to Limerick one night, and that's it. That was it. We swapped numbers, or did I get his number off his cousin and text him? And as they say, the rest is history. So we got engaged in 2000. So we met in 2003. and we got engaged in 2011. I'm looking over now to make sure I'm right. I think I'm right. So yeah, he proposed to me in New York. So it was very, very romantic. And we actually went traveling for a full year after it. So we packed up our bags in September 2011 and we traveled the world for a year. Yeah, it was amazing. Great time to look back on. So I think his goal was to have a ring on my finger before we left, just in case.
I can understand that. And I just seen on a recent post, I think it was Father's Day, and you just said that you wouldn't have, and I know it's going to be hard for you because I sit beside you, but you wouldn't have what you have without him. So what kind of guy is he?
Oh gosh. Yeah, he's amazing. He has stuck by me through thick and thin. The last 2.5 years, I suppose, has tested our relationship to the max. I don't think many relationships would have survived it. And it is a true testament to him that we did get through it all. And like, honestly, Rebecca, this house definitely wouldn't be standing unless he was beside me, because it's been rough. It has been rough. There's no two ways about it. But he's been amazing. Sure. He's made my life amazing.
I can see that. So you got married, and then what was the plan?
So the plan was, I don't know if we ever had a plan, did we? I suppose we got married in 2011. 2013 we got married in July, and then my dad was dying of cancer. So he died on the very last day of that year. So the 31st of December, 2013. So I think I knew for quite a while Dad was dying. Dad had terminal cancer for quite some time. So I think our goal was to get married. And for a long time, the marriage was, I suppose, up in the air of, do we do it now? Do we do it sooner? But I trusted my gut. I knew Dad wouldn't go. Even though you're never too sure, are you? When you're watching somebody, I suppose, die in front of your eyes, you feel that you don't know if they've longed to go or not, because you're not sure of how frail a person can get. And I suppose Dad got very frail in the end. And he passed away that year, which was tough. So in terms of plans, we didn't have any plan. And Elle was by my side, and we kind of soldiered it together. And I suppose we decided that we wanted to have a baby because the house wasn't happening. And we thought, you have this lovely romantic ideal of having a home and putting a baby room together and all that, but it just wasn't meant to be. And we had huge difficulty in trying to get pregnant. And we had a few misses along the way. And I suppose it came to a point where we needed help. So we ended going down the fertility route, and we had fertility treatment for about 1.5 years. And it came to a point then we were told that this was our last option unless we wanted to move on to further IVF and things like that. So just so happened I went in for a scan to see what the story was, and there was one follicle. That was a size that they were kind of happy with, and it didn't come out of any, like, we had, I can't remember all the drugs now that we were on, but whatever follicle that was there was big enough that they were willing to wait, and we were shocked. We were delighted. Again, it's a part of my life that I've kind of compartmentalized, and you tend to go through all these things in life, and once you come out the other side, you just kind of have to make peace with all that, don't you? And yeah, we have Ben.
Did you make peace with it?
Did I make peace with it? I don't like to think about things too much, Rebecca, because you do make peace with it. I suppose during that time you're very cross with yourself. You're you're angry that your body doesn't do what your body should do. You know, you blame yourself, you blame lots of things. You think maybe I'm not doing things right, maybe. And like, I suppose going through fertility treatment, you're taking a lot of hormones, so you're upset one minute, you're elated the next minute, you're angry, it's hard, it's frustrating, you're on a million apps trying to wonder if you're ovulating, if you're not. I had PCOS, and you go through the rigmarole of like your lap and eye, there was a lot of tests that time, and you're not alone. You walk into those fertility treatment centers and you think that you're the only person going through it. And yeah, it could have been a lot worse. We're very lucky that we ended up being able to have been. But yeah, it was, I suppose I'm not going into too much, Rebecca, but it was shit. It was a horrible time to have to go through. God, it's a thing. We've been through so much more that it trivializes a lot of what went on then. You know, you have moved on. You have to move on. You have to move on for your family. You have to move on for your relationship. And we have the most amazing little boy in our lives. So.
And then you got pregnant with Ben. And what was that like then when you found out that you were pregnant with Ben?
Wow. Yeah. I think my husband laughed for about 30 minutes when I told him. It was amazing.
How did you find it?
So it was all very clinical. So I went to the fertility treatment centre in Cork, the Waterstone Clinic, and the nurse checked my ovaries, and I had one follicle that was big enough, and she told me to come back in a few days, and if it was still there, she would inject me, and then, like, it's very clinical, you have to have intercourse and that night, and anyway, so I went, and the follicle was big and large enough, so we had one follicle, and it was just fantastic, and we obviously had to go home and
can I ask you, is that like romantic, or is that like, let's get this shit done? You know, what is like, you know, you're just like, right, we're doing this, get it in, get it out, you know.
I know. We tried to make it romantic. But yeah, so they ring, like, it's so clinical. They ring you the next week and they're like, so, I wanted to do a pregnancy test on this date and the earlier no sooner. And I think, whatever date they gave me, but I did a sneaky little one before that. And there was 2 lines. So it was like, wow, oh my God, it's just, it's amazing. We've been trying for quite some time, and it was brilliant.
And what was the pregnancy like?
I had a fantastic pregnancy. I had a brilliant, I never felt pregnant. But I had a great pregnancy. We were still traveling because we love traveling. It was great. No complaints. I don't think I was ever sick. You have your odd, like, you have your cravings, and maybe like the first month you were tired or a few headaches, but like, you know, things that wouldn't bother you that much. It was brilliant. And
then what was the birth like?
So because of our journey, our consultant wanted to do a C-section. Okay. So again, it was all planned. Ben was breech as well. So we had set a date, and it was the 22nd of November, and everything was, that date was set in stone, and we knew we were going to have a baby that day. We didn't know the sex, so that was nice. Even though I knew in my gut from, I'd say, week 6 onwards, I knew it was a boy. I was like, I don't know why, but I was just convinced it was a boy. And we had Ben. So he was the tiny little baba. I think he was, 3 kg. He was tiny. I was told he was going to be a humongous baby, but I think he has long limbs, and I don't know how they measure a baby, but he was tiny. He was tiny. So it was all good. I stayed in the hospital, and then we came home, and of course you've your pandemonium of newborn at home, and you haven't a clue what you're doing, and all the new parent, what? I mean, it's pandemonium, isn't it? Like, it's just crazy. Your life just changes like that, and you just have to roll with the punches. I remember a friend of mine said, anything that's said from 12 a.m. until 6 a.m., you just have to brush it off and just forgive each other. So that says it all, really. But yeah, it was great. We were in our little bubble. So it was a nice time of the year as well. It was Christmas time, so we had our first little Santy, and yeah, Ben was a very good baby for November, December. So then things started to change for us, I suppose. So December, we were going home to Kerry, and Ben got very sick. He got really sick. He had a terrible viral infection. Nothing GPs could do. And it was Christmas Eve. So we were, I suppose, trying to juggle a sick baby, newborn. We didn't know what to do, who to turn to. And he had a really raspy chest, and his breathing was very laboured. But again, we kept on ringing South Dock, and they kept on saying, look, he's fine, he'll be okay. There's nothing we could do, even if you brought him in. But I think from that day forth, things just never settled down for us ever again. So Ben became a really, really irritable baby from that day forward. He used to scream from 1, 2 in the day until maybe about 5 or 6 in the evening time. He hated breastfeeding. He never wanted to be up in my arms as a newborn. Hated sleeping, didn't hate sleep, but would never sleep. Even in the pram, I got it into my head that if I didn't roll over anything that would shake the pram, that he might sleep. But even the little lip in a pavement would wake him up. Like, you have this romantic, I remember getting the buggy, Rebecca, and I thought, I'm going to be out in the pram, and I'll be going for lunches and drinking my coffee. Like that just was never the case. It was probably, I won't say the hardest time in my life, but it's a time where you feel like you're failing. And like, it wasn't postpartum depression or anything, but I just felt I couldn't do it. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if this was right. I didn't know if other mothers were experiencing what I was experiencing and just not telling me, or was there something wrong? So I remember bringing my mom up from Kerry for January and saying, like, is this normal? And she was like, no, well, it's not normal. So then you kind of think, okay, who's going to give me answers? Like, so I went to my GP, and you try and explain what is going on. But I think as a new mom, you're pretty much pushed to one side and told, look, every baby's cry. You're very impressionable as a first mom as well, because you've nothing to base your theories on. Like, you've no experience, you've no other child to like weigh up against, and you're sent home and you think, okay, it's me. I'm doing something wrong. What is it? So January and February they were hell. I just thought, gosh, and I'm the type of person, I'm a little bit, not OCD, but I feel like I have to be not the best at everything, but my best at everything, I wanted to be a good mom. I wanted things to be great. I wanted to have that family unit of being able to go out places, but I was terrified. I was actually scared to leave the house for fear that Ben would just lose the plot, because that's exactly what would happen. He would scream, he'd thrash, trying to feed him was just a nightmare. He'd go all red, he'd break out in like rashes, and it was just, I didn't know where to turn to. So I got a pediatrician to look at him in CUH, and she told me he was sleep deprived. And that sent me down an awful road, because trying to get a child or a baby to sleep when they don't sleep. I can't tell you how bad of a road that I went down. You're trying to follow all these expertise and sleep coaches, and it was just ridiculous. And I panicked because if he didn't sleep for an hour in the afternoon, is that going to impact him? And he wasn't putting on weight and he wasn't reaching milestones. And I thought, oh my God, what can I do? Tell me. I needed help. I needed somebody to pull me out and just say, it's okay. This isn't how it works for every child. Or it's that road of trying to get him to sleep was just horrendous. It was never going to work for Ben. And in hindsight, I put an awful lot of strain on me and on Elle as a couple. I felt like if I'd gotten him to sleep, everything was going to be okay. And it wasn't. It was never going to be okay. But yeah, for months that was our road, and it was rough. It was horrible. It was horrible for Ben. It was horrible for us. So then, I looked to other places. I took him to a new GP, and I asked her, what can we do? And she thought that he had tongue tie. Now, I had flagged this at the hospital. I had flagged this to other people. But again, whatever it is is it first time mothers? Is it? I don't know. You really are underestimated as knowing anything about your own child. I knew Ben had a tongue tie because his tongue was starting to go into the shape of an M. So I knew he did, but I didn't know, was that impacting on him? Was that impacting him on breastfeeding? What? So our new GP actually does tongue ties. So she snipped his tongue, but saw that he had a posterior tongue tie as well. So it was lodged right onto the bottom of his mouth. So we took him to Justin Roach in Tipperary, and he lasered his tongue free. But even by this stage, Rebecca, he had fallen already behind in his milestones. So when the public health nurse came to us, Ben wasn't able to do tummy time. He wasn't lifting his head. But again, you're given the reason that, if he was putting so much effort into breastfeeding because he had a tongue tie, that he didn't have any other effort, or he didn't have any other energy left to do anything else. And again, you're very accepting. You're very accepting of everything. So again, we ended up starting on physio. So we had public physio from when he was 3 months old. I went to a breastfeeding consultant. You do anything. Yeah. You would do anything for your child. It didn't matter if you had beans on toast on your plate 5-6 days a week. You'd pay anything. You'd do anything. I just needed it to be right for him. Mm-hmm. It was, yeah. Oh, gosh.
How old was he when they lasered his tongue?
He was 3 or 4 months old. I think it was March, so he would have been 4 months old.
And then were you so angry with all the previous doctors that you'd been to because of that?
It's frustrating because I'd known he had a tongue tie for all that time, and I was putting it down to that's the reason that he wasn't breastfeeding properly. Oh gosh, Rebecca, he used to scream so much. I remember saying to my husband, please just don't leave us, because he used to leave for work. I was just, please. I was crying. I was bawling at 7:30, 8 o'clock, because I thought, how am I going to get through another day? How? I just didn't know how. And you put on a brave face for everyone else and your friends, and because you don't want to show that vulnerability, you don't want to show that you can't do it. I wanted, as I said, I wanted to be a good mom, and I wasn't. That was it in a nutshell. I just couldn't be.
But you were. But you were.
It was, yeah. You just don't feel it. You don't feel like you're getting anywhere, really. So yeah, we kept on going with physio. And April, May, Ben started to show some progress. So we were delighted. I mean, we thought, okay, this is it. We're on a good road here. And I went back to work in June. So June of 2019. So I only took 6 months maternity leave. Now I was going to be off for the summer. And in hindsight, again, I shouldn't have gone back, but I did.
But as well as that, you have to, I absolutely, you need that for yourself though as well, because otherwise you wouldn't have been there for him. You wouldn't have been, and you can't be upset or angry with yourself because and even the fact that you're saying, I know I wasn't, you were a good mom and you were just trying to do what you could. And I get you had to go to work. You had to go to work. And hindsight is a great thing, but it's hindsight.
I know. And it is, as you say, it's lovely to get out and be sociable with adults. And, I had my husband took some time off that June and spent some time at home. And I suppose that's where the real story begins then, with Ben. So, excuse me now if I start to get upset, because I don't think I've ever spoken very openly about what Ben has gone through, but yeah.
Take your time.
Okay.
So, whenever you're ready.
So, okay. So in June, I went back to work, and I used to come home and think, Ben isn't doing certain things that he used to. So he wasn't lifting his head. He stopped rolling. There were certain milestones that he had met that I thought, he just doesn't seem to be doing it anymore. And he'd oddly, his head would just drop randomly. And I thought, gosh, that's even my mom was like, that's so odd. And again, we had these screaming bouts. And when I mean screaming, Rebecca, you've never seen the likes of it. I have videos upon videos upon videos of Ben screaming so much that you could see his blue veins just popping in his head. And you couldn't do anything because he didn't want to be with you. I actually used to say to my husband that I think Ben actually hates me. I really do. He never wanted to be up in my arms. He never wanted physical contact. He preferred to be down on the ground. But in June, I was at school, and I even remember a teacher asking me, was Ben upset when you left? And my answer to her was, I actually don't know if Ben knows who I really am. And this was, Ben was 6 months at that time. So again, I was showing videos to my friends. I was showing videos to my colleagues. I was like, what? Is this normal? Please tell me, is this normal? Have you experienced this? I needed someone to tell me. And it got, as I was moving further and further into June, Ben was regressing more and more and more. And he has a cousin in Australia, and she used to be sending us loads of videos, and there was only a couple of months between him and Ben. So I used to be scrolling back to see what was he doing at 6 months, and going, look, he's Ben is just, there's this doesn't add up. This doesn't add up. There's something wrong. My gut was telling me something was wrong, but then you have people coming into the house going, no, look, he'll be fine. This is normal. They all do the things in their own time. I've heard that saying so often. And I thought, no, my gut, I knew there was something wrong, but I just didn't know where to turn to. So kept on going through June, and then it was in my head from July onwards, I was going to focus entirely on Ben and see what I could do, see what I could do to help him progress in his skills, see what I could do to help him stop with the screaming. Again, with the sleep, I was like, maybe it's back to the sleep thing. So my goal was to move his cot out of our room and see if that would help. Because, we were getting no sleep at night. He never slept during the day. Yeah, it just, June was bad because I suppose I knew something was wrong, and others couldn't see it.
Did you think you were mad?
I did. I did. And I'm a person who probably listens to other people's opinions a little much as well, when I should have just trusted my gut instinct.
Yeah.
But again, Rebecca, like, it's, when you're going to professionals as well, you feel they should know as well. You feel not that they should know, but if they tell you everything's okay, you trust them. You do. Of course you do. They're an expertise in their field, and you trust them. But come July then, Ben was starting to randomly fall asleep at odd times. And part of me was thinking, okay, maybe he's just come to a stage now where he's just tired, and you just don't know. And like, gosh, as a mom, I had all those little milestone placards, that you wanted to take a picture, and it's just like, I felt like ripping them to shreds. And I had apps telling me that what he should be doing, and you have a comparison with, like, he has a cousin who's 3 months younger than him in Kerry, and you have a cousin who's like 4 or 5 months older than him in Australia, and you're getting the pictures and you're getting the milestones, and it's just, you feel hopeless. You feel like you're never going to get there, and you don't know who to turn to. So in July 10th, then we're coming up to where everything happened. So I remember going to a hen party the first week of July, and Ben, it was my birthday in and around that time as well, and Ben had been physically sick. He'd made himself sick, and the tension, Rebecca, oh my God, the tension in our house. There was constant tension because neither of us knew what to do. And
of course there was. You weren't sleeping. You weren't, like, if I'm sleep deprived for 2 days, I lose my absolute mind. I lose my mind. So I can't even comprehend how you were. And as you said at the top of the call, that how you stay together in your relationship. Do you know what I mean? So you have to take something from that the two of you are so strong. In that you're still here.
Yeah, I'm laughing because, oh God, I don't know how we did it, but we did, and we're still standing strong. But it's a lot. Like it's a lot to go back over.
Tell me about July.
That first week in July. Yeah, this is where it starts. Then July 10th, I took Ben to the doctor, to the GP, and his regular GP wasn't there. So we were seen by one of the other GPs. And I told him, I said, look, he has lost some skills. His head drops oddly. He screams. He doesn't sleep. I need help. And he gave me some medication for reflux. And I left, and I believed him. I'm like, what? That was the first time somebody told me he had reflux. So I was like, right, this is it. This is what it's been all along. So we were giving him Zantac that day. And I remember thinking, maybe I'm just not encouraging him enough as a baby. So I remember going to Mother Care that day after the doctors, and I bought him some toys that I thought would help. And like, to this day, I hate looking at those toys. Whew. But anyway, the following day was again just an odd day. Ben was falling in and out of sleep. And that evening at 6, I was giving him his bottle on his chair in his room, and I could feel this like little jerk movement. And I thought, God, it's a little odd. And my husband came in the door that day, that time, and I just screamed for him and I don't know why, because it was almost like hiccups, but I just felt there was something wrong. So he came up and we were so lucky. I don't know what possessed us to do this, but we videoed it. So it lasted for about 30 minutes and Ben fell fast asleep afterwards. So did we know anything was seriously wrong? I don't think so. But we did mention the word seizure, but we weren't sure. So I rang South Doc again. All these things seem to happen outside of doctor's hours, but I rang South Doc and they said to come, and I rang my sister who's a nurse and she said, get yourself to A&E immediately. So we took Ben into the car and we drove to A&E in CUH in Cork. And we were waiting in CUH and like we were so naive, Rebecca, we actually thought, sure, we'll be home in a few hours. Everything's going to be okay. But we were so blessed. Whatever possessed us to take that video, I don't know, but to have that video was gold. We got seen then by 2 regs on call in A&E and they took bloods and they did his vital signs, and I think it was about 12 that night, maybe 11, 12 o'clock, and we were sent to Ladybird ward. Again, like neither of us knew, was this serious? Like nobody, not that nobody was telling us anything. It was just, I suppose they didn't know themselves for sure, what had happened, but we had our evidence with us. So we were sent to the Ladybird ward that night, and Ben looked a bit dazed, but we were shattered by that stage, and we had nurses coming in. I don't know if he had another seizure that night. I think he might have had another. When I say seizure, it's like they call this a slam movement. So it's when your arms and your legs and your head all kind of jerk in one moment, and they happen between every 10 and 30 seconds. And it could last. Our longest one was probably 40 minutes. So we had to, so I'm kind of jumping ahead now, but okay. That night, I suppose the nurses, so what they told us was anytime we see any movement like that, to ring the bell. And like they'd rush in, and I suppose we had some slight indication that something was wrong. But so then the following morning, we had a neurologist come to us, and it was a team of about 10 in the room.
Wow.
And so I suppose one of the first things she said to us was, your child has West syndrome and he will never walk. He may never walk or talk, and to prepare yourselves for special schooling. And so God, what do you do? Like, I remember that consultation going on, I'd say we were in there maybe 50 minutes, maybe 40, 50 minutes. To be honest, time doesn't even matter then, but I don't think I heard another word they said. You just like, what? Like, it's like as if somebody picked me up and I was watching it from a distance, you're like, oh my God, like this, you just don't believe it. And I think that's the mode we went into. It was like, this is not how Ben's life is going to be. What can we do to fix it? We need to fix this. And that's what, sorry, now I'm shaking, but that's what our philosophy was like. This is not going to be Ben's life. What can we do? And that's all we wanted to know. So we met with 2 neurologists. We had the regs, we had the clinical nurse specialist in epilepsy, we had I'd say there was a few more nurses in the room, and they just went into, I suppose, doctor mode of what they were going to do, what was the plan. But you just sit and you're helpless because you haven't a clue. I've never heard of West syndrome. Like,
what is it?
What the hell? So West syndrome is a rare form of epilepsy. It is a very serious condition that if it's not stopped with medication, the longer it lasts, Rebecca, without stopping the seizures, the more brain damage that's done. So every seizure that Ben was having was causing him brain damage, and we needed to stop them. And the only way to stop them was through steroids, a severe course of steroids, medication, vigabatrin, and hopefully they would stop. But it's just a hopefully, and that was our hope, that they would stop, and did stop soon. I think it took a full 10 days for Ben's seizures to finally stop. And he had upwards of about 30 seizures in those days.
And can I ask you, was it only then, or was he having these from birth, or was the tongue tied an issue with it? Like, was that signs of it?
We'll never know. We'll never know, and that's the tough part. I don't like it, and the thing about it is I'm on a support group with parents, and there's just so many unanswered questions. Like, there's a million unanswered questions that nobody in the neurology team can tell us. I think we know more about the condition than anybody in Ireland at this moment in time. Well, not that anybody in Ireland, but majority of people in Ireland. You have to self-educate because it's such a rare form that not a lot of people would be aware of it. GPs that we've gone to haven't heard of it that often. Actually, I don't think a single GP that we've been to has heard of the syndrome. So yeah, that was part of the reason I said, that was my vow to Ben throughout his time in hospital, that I needed more people to be aware of this, and I needed to know how to fix it, because the first thing we were told was, don't Google it. And what's the first thing you're going to do? You Google. And it's very antiquated, the information that's on Google. So there's a lot of talk of that kids won't reach their 5th birthday, and that it's just, I suppose it tells you the most horrendous things that you don't want to know. Your child will be severely disabled. It's just, I suppose the Google search didn't help. But then we found a light at the end of the tunnel. We found a support group in the UK, and they were our saving grace. It was parents that were going through it, and you can't beat people that have gone through what you're going through, and like the help, the support, the questions that they answer, the things that you just need. Hope. It was a lot. I suppose it was a lot to take in.
Was there relief when you got the diagnosis? Yeah.
Part of me felt justification that I wasn't, as you said earlier, I wasn't going mad, that there was something, but then part of you just feels like this is the last thing you want to hear. That sentence, until my dying day, I'll never forget it. We were just paddling. Like, we were trying to stay cool, but we were just underneath. We were just, every day was spent researching and trying to figure out what can we do. So he was started straight off on steroids, he was started off straight off on vigabatrin, so Sabril. Now, it is a medication that is not technically given to children under the age of 2 or 3, but and it affects eyesight, so they were trying to keep an eye on that. But there's 4 reasons for West syndrome. So there's I'm trying to look at some notes that I had to take down, Rebecca, and my apologies, but it's been so long since I've read up on all this again. But it was either structural, so he had an MRI. The MRI came back okay. Like he had a bit of fluid to the front of his brain, but they were happy enough with it. It's then metabolic. It can be metabolic. So they checked his liver, and he had a spinal tap, and he had a liver functioning test. He had a kidney workup. He had a heart workup. He had, oh my goodness, genetics. They took so much blood from him. But like I suppose, thankfully, he was at an age where he will never remember all this. I don't think we'll ever forget it. But so genetics, they did his genetics, and then I suppose the last reason is unknown. And the unknown reason is the best case possible. So people often think if you don't know what has caused it, then maybe that's worse. The worst case scenario, you want to know what's caused it. But in the West syndrome case, it's the best possible outcome for your child. So we got all the tests. So we were in there for over 2.5 weeks. And they were doing all these tests, and he was on an amount of medication. And my husband read up some study, I think it was from Cambridge or something at the time, and it suggested that if we added in a strong steroid on top of the vigabatrin, that would stop the seizures a little bit better. And they had already thought, like they were coming to us with that scenario anyway. So we started with Preds. So I think it was 40 mg, like it was a very strong steroid for such a small child. But yeah, it was just medication. And every time I remember that bell in hospital, every time we had a seizure, we had to ring that bell, and the nurses would just dash in, and we had to video it every time, and we had to time each time he had it, the movement. We had to time between that and the next one to see if they were reducing in time, and you couldn't pick him up. So I suppose, again, it's the guilt. Like I remember putting out that video on trying to bring awareness. And I remember thinking, God, would people think I'm so bad for not picking him up and cuddling him and stuff? But we weren't allowed to. You have to leave Ben have his seizure. And yeah, it was scary for him. And like there's times where you saw him crying, and yeah, I don't know.
Scary for you. Like I just don't even know how you would deal with that. Like, it must be absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, it's funny. I feel so not removed from it now, but there's been so much. Yeah, it's like again, you just I don't know how to even explain it. We just needed to move. I think in our head, we just felt we needed to be we didn't need to like sit down and feel sorry for ourselves. We needed to like be proactive, and we needed to fix this. And that was our outlook always, like that we just couldn't sit and feel sorry for ourselves. That was not going to be the case. We needed to fix this for Ben. We needed to know how to fix it, and we needed the best care and services. So like we had OT in the hospital, we had physio, we had speech and language, we had, I suppose the epileptic nurses have been fantastic in CUH, the neurologists. I mean, they were so on the ball, Rebecca. I mean, he was medicated within 12 hours to 24 hours of us being in hospital, and Ben was medicated, and like that to us was everything. I'm so glad we had that video, that like without even seeing Ben, she was able to tell us what it was.
God.
Yeah, from that video alone, she didn't even need to see his seizure. She just knew straight away. So, and like I do count us as being lucky, because a lot of people on that support group, they go to hospital and the child isn't having, I call it a seizure. It is a seizure, but it's not your typical epilepsy seizure, because it's causing brain damage at the same time, and it can't be stopped by your typical epileptic drugs. You need to be on a course of strong steroids and Sabril in order for it to have any effect. And a lot of people are on like the ketogenic diet, and like there's different combinations of drugs that work for different kids, and like it's a very complex, I suppose, diagnosis, because it's different for everyone. and it's rare. Like, I mean, statistically in Ireland, I don't have any statistics, but I think it's like 1 in every 3,000 kids in the UK. But yeah, it's almost like it doesn't exist in Ireland. But then, like, I show snippets on Instagram, and I'll always hashtag infantile spasms or West syndrome, and like the amount of people who contact me over West syndrome or infantile spasms for just, and it was like me. It was me 2 years ago, contacting people saying, please give me hope, give me something. What can I do? Just tell me anything. Because I suppose there came to a point where you have to leave the hospital, and that was a low day, because you're so, I suppose you're so protected in hospital, and you don't have to think of what to give drugs. You just feel, I felt I wanted to stay there, forever. So he'd be in a place that he was taken care of, but we had to go home. But you're panicked, you're on edge, you're given, like, he was on Sabril. I have actually, this was the list that we were given from the hospital. And we had times, and we had to give him medications at 7, 12, 7 and 12. So, and there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drugs. And like, you just feel like, what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? And, we had to, because he was on such a high dose of prednisolone then as well, we had to self-isolate. So Ben wasn't allowed to go anywhere for 3 months, because their immune system is quite low at that time. So we weren't allowing people to come in and see him from about 7, 8 months. And like, even his cousin came from Australia, and it was like, no, sorry. But you have to, don't you? You just, like, our priority was Ben.
Can I ask you, Elda, what does that do to you? What does it do to you? Like, obviously, you're going through all of this, and your security blanket, as in the hospital, has been taken away from you, and you're going home. What does that do to you? Like, I know you're like Ben. We had to think about, but what does that do to you?
Yeah, it's fear, Rebecca. It's like fear of. Not being, fear, worry. I suppose I never tried to let myself think of us. It was all Ben, because, it was, like, who wants their child to be diagnosed with something that you think is going to impact them for life? Every mother, every father, every mother has dreams. When that baby's placed in your arms, you have dreams of what it's going to be. I had his name down in my school, and within months you're told, actually, no, your child is never going to do any of those things. Yeah, it's a very hard pill to swallow. And I suppose the journey that we had to get to Ben, you feel, what have I done? What have I done in life to deserve this? You too. You have that bit of self-pity, but I try not to dwindle on that for any time, because
you have a focus. You just want to make
you do. You have a focus, and I still have a focus. It's a journey. It feels like a never-ending journey. But we're a lot further along than I ever thought we would be. But yeah, like, oh God, or even like thinking back, Rebecca, just even that August, September time that we were at home, and you're coming up to nearing Ben's first birthday, and oh gosh, I remember him just lying on the ground, and you're trying to do these exercises that you're not getting anywhere, and his eyes are just rolling on his head, and like with the steroids, he just ballooned in weight, absolutely ballooned. Like, oh gosh, if I was to show you photos of pre-pred, pre-steroid, oh geez, Ben was tiny, and next thing all you have is this humongous baby that just looks, this is an awful word to use, but like he was just a vegetable on the ground, I mean, and you just want to help. You want to do something that will, or you just wanted to do something that shows you that there's progression. But it was, no matter what you did, Ben being on all those drugs, you were going to get nowhere. But you feel like you have to, but you were getting nowhere with him. And that's not his fault, and it's not your fault, but you just feel like, gosh, surely he'll do something, like, will he turn over? Will he be able to raise his head? But as we came off the steroids, sure, geez, I'm jumping around now, Rebecca, but like the steroids, then sure, Ben was up from, he used to go down to bed at about 7-ish, and he'd be up from 12 to 6 every single night, because he just was energetic on steroids. So that was for about 2-3 months. And so, like, there was very, very little sleep. But again, there was huge tension all the time, because we were both getting no sleep, and Elle was working. I decided not to go back to work, obviously. So I took some leave for a few months, just to try and get, like, we were still getting our heads around the fact that, and still learning about the syndrome, and trying to do our best. And we were on an assessment of needs, but we weren't getting anywhere with that. Services were quite slow for Ben. So we ended up going down private physio. Thank God we had the money for it. And again, I would do anything for him, even if we didn't. We'd have had borrowed, begged, or stolen to get physio for Ben. We were on an assessment of needs, and the multidisciplinary team, what was written down, Ben's diagnosis was infantile spasms, and they don't deem infantile spasms as a priority.
My God.
If we'd known in hindsight, they do deem West syndrome, but I think the only difference, like, there is very little difference in the two. I think one, that you have an EEG, so a brain scan that Ben has had. He's had loads of these now, but so back in July when we were in hospital, Ben had an EEG. His first one looked normal, but she was convinced that the second one wouldn't. So it's called hypsarrhythmia. So when the brain waves are very erratic. And I remember Ben seizure and going down to have this EEG. And I remember, it's funny, sorry, this memory has just popped back into my head. I remember being so upset watching him seizuring. Like, he was in this trolley, and he was so tiny. And I remember passing everyone in the corridor. And of course, when you see a baby, you're looking in and you're thinking, they're in hospital, and like, all I could see was Ben seizuring, and I remember tears just streaming down my face. I remember being in the elevator, and this older couple were going, "Oh, look," and like, I'm assuming they knew as well that Ben was seizuring, but I just felt I wanted to scream. I just wanted, oh God, sorry, that memory just popped back into my head. But yeah, like, so his brain waves were very, very erratic, and they needed to stop that. They needed to almost reset his brain to slow that down. So that's what all the medication was hoping that would do. But she's coming back to that. Yeah. So the multidisciplinary team, that wasn't written down, his diagnosis that he had West syndrome. So we actually weren't seen for a further 13 months. Yeah, I know. So there was a full 13 months of us just rowing the boat ourselves. Again, hindsight, I've said it a few times. I should have just screamed loudly. I did ring a couple of times, but I was told, look, you're number 40 on the list. And you think, right, okay, yeah, I'm number 40 on the list. You accept it for what it is. But I had a child that needed services there and then. We did get him physio, and to be fair, the Barefoot Clinic in Ballincollig, or in Bishopstown, she was phenomenal with him. and it felt like you were doing something, Rebecca. You know, you could go home and you had homework, and we felt like we were finally starting to see some bit of progress. Now, I remember Fee was our physio there at the very, I suppose, towards an end where she couldn't get us any further than what we were at. I remember her turning to me saying, Elaine, I can't. The day you walked in, I really thought like it was hopeless. But I never said that to you, and I'm so glad she didn't. Because you need some hope. You need to hold on to something, and we're still holding on, you know. And yeah, to me, Ben is perfect. So, but he's my Ben. So October, November, we started to come off so they say once you start to come off the drugs. So when I say they say, this is our support group with the UK. And they said, as soon as you start to come off drugs, you should see some progress. So coming off the Sabril, Rebecca, that was horrendous, absolutely horrendous. Ben was like a drug addict. I mean, the withdrawal symptoms. And again, I suppose the neurologists don't know. They don't see what you see as a parent. So you're telling them what you're going to do. So we were going to wean it a lot slower than they thought. So they send you home with like a sheet of what you should be weaning off every week or every day. But the jump was so large for Ben. He was, we used to just like scrape and pull and scream so badly. I'd say, I don't know how our neighbors dealt with us, but it felt like months. I'm sure it was a lot less than months, but it felt like a time that we would never get through to wean Ben off that drug.
And they don't bring them into the hospital to do that?
No. I think it was probably over 4 weeks. So again, I suppose it's not a place you want to be either, Rebecca, because it's very, you know, it is nicer to be in your own place. But I understand where you're coming from too. But yeah, it was that was a huge ordeal, getting him off that drug. But it was finally the week before his first birthday, we were almost drug free. I think we were off the two major ones anyway. And that was enough for us. I mean, it was a celebration, you know. We had gotten to his first birthday, and things were, I suppose did he start to roll? And yeah, there was a few milestones he was starting to reach. And then we had my sister's wedding that Christmas. And I remember the day after her wedding, he sat up for the first time. Like he was 13 months, and we were everyone was in Seizure bar, my husband.
Oh God.
And we were just shocked. Like there was a good gang. Like, I mean, I told you I'm a family of 6 now, but there was a good, huge gang of us in the sitting room. And I remember whatever way he managed to sit up. It was just, I suppose, celebrations all around. 29th of December, I'll never forget it. That was, I suppose, the moment where we had our first glimmer of like hope. He was 13 months. You're so proud. You've like these milestones, just, you know, I suppose, not to trivialize it for any parent, but you're accepting of it. You're thinking, oh, tick. Whereas for us, this was like he had climbed Mount Everest, you know, this was everything. It mightn't seem like anything to anybody else, but this was just a moment that we'll never forget. I will never, ever, ever forget that moment of him sitting up, and I can see it. I can like, it's a time I will never forget. So then January, oh my goodness. So I want to kind of think back now. So he started to sit up, and we had still physio, and it was actually in physio that he started to pull himself up a little bit. And I remember the first time, again, it's all like these first, I'd say he was moving on towards maybe 15 months. And you're going through all this and in the same time I went back to work, but anyway. Madness, because I'd say, God, love my school. It was, I actually don't think I could string two words together. We were going through an awful lot, a lot more than I ever let on to people.
Why do you think that was? Why did you not let on to people?
Pride. You don't want people to judge your child ever. You want them to see. I was always scared that people would judge Ben, that they would see him differently, and I didn't want that. I didn't want Ben to be seen as different. I remember actually the neurologist even telling me one day, just throwing it into a conversation about, being a parent of a special needs child. And I actually, it shocked me, because I'd never seen myself as a parent of a special needs child. But I guess I am. But I remember the first time that it was said, I was in disbelief, because I knew he had a syndrome. Did I think of him as having special needs? No. But you're a mom, you see your child as the be all and end all,
Can I ask you, when the medication and the steroids stopped, is that him, oh God, I'm actually forgetting the word. What's the word? Seizure free.
Seizure free, yeah. So the hope is that he's seizure free. A lot of kids have relapses. And then you have to start that journey all again. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, honest to God. Thankfully, you have no idea how many parents are added to that group in the UK every single day. This is the scary thing, Rebecca, is that it's so unknown in Ireland, and you could have a child that is misdiagnosed, and the outlook, you're if you don't start that medication immediately or as soon as you can, you're effectively, your child is having more and more brain damage, and their outlook is bleak. That's the scary thing, is because a lot of GPs are misdiagnosing it as reflux. As soon as I went in with regression of skills, that should have been, straight away red flag. No child should have any regression of any skill. Once that skill is learned, that's it. It's set in stone. But yeah, no, I've definitely grown some leerody along this journey. And I don't have any doubt in my mind when it comes to dealing with things with Ben anymore. You have to. I don't want to be that parent that screams the loudest, but you have to be that parent that screams the loudest. Yeah. So we're very lucky. Ben never relapsed. We had a query seizure. He was put on Eplum.
What's that?
He was Eplum is your typical epileptic drug to maintain seizure free in any epileptic form. So we were put on it, but only as a precautionary. So he has been on, and we finished it yesterday.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know. So he had an MRI scan last December 1st, and he's had plenty of EEGs, and they've all come back looking normal. So that was our first. He's on other medication, but this is another major thing for us. It's even today was our first day not giving it at 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. and it felt weird, it felt like we're so
routine.
It was our routine every single day. So it just felt odd. We were on a walk at 5:30 and we thought, oh God, we don't have to be back for 6. But yeah, so that was lovely. So he's off Eplum since yesterday. So another, I suppose, a thing I haven't said either, Rebecca, is that Ben used to, so come January, we were off a lot of the major drugs. We'd gone through Christmas, my sister got married, he was sitting up, things started to look up. But from January onwards, we had all the the nights up with the steroids. We had all the nights up with weaning the vigabatrin, him screaming his head off. We were still kind of meandering along, and then January hit, and he was a nightmare at night. So he was a very happy child during the day. Sleep, again, was never good. He'd start like his day nap, he'd start screaming 40 minutes into it. You go down, he'd sit in your arms. He'd thrash around the place, he'd roll. So like you got maybe 40 minutes in the day. And then nighttime came. I used to dread it. I used to dread nighttime. Like my stomach used going nuts. Come around 6, 7 o'clock. He used to go down okay. But give it an hour and Ben used to be up screaming. And I mean now screaming, thrashing, walloping himself off you, sitting up, didn't want to be in your arms. So it wasn't a case of a lot of like the consultants and doctors you say was just to get comfort from you, but it wasn't like we needed to get an answer on this. So he used to thrash around from maybe 8, 9, 10, 11, and then he'd fall asleep. So I'd get sleep from 11 to 12 to maybe 1-ish. And then he'd wake again from maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock maybe, thrashing again. And he was never awake, like he was never physically awake, but it was just screaming, thrashing. He'd roll. And then he'd sleep maybe until 5, 6 o'clock, and then he's up. And this was every single night. And because there was COVID in the country, we had very little contact with CUH. We were home in Kerry. So I just got into this whole like routine of just doing this night in, night out. My husband was working. I was remote and I was working a week on, week off. But I felt like I was the only person that could do this because obviously Elle was on meetings all day long. So I just did it. But like, I suppose this is the part where it starts to affect you physically and mentally. This was a cycle that continued for probably 6 months before I rang the consultant, or did I email her or something? And I just said, I can't do this anymore. I actually can't do this anymore. And she said, is it worth hospitalizing you? I said, Ben, she meant. Mm-hmm. I said, yeah, we need somebody to see what's going on. And my first night in there, I was told to ring the bell when this would start, which I did. And the nurse came and I videoed it. And the nurse was shocked. She's like, oh my God, this is not normal. And the consultant saw the video the next day and she actually apologized. She's like, why didn't you say something sooner? And I suppose again, I was a bit of an idiot, to be honest with you, Rebecca. I just did it night in, night out and never looked for help. But I was getting to the stage where I thought I was in a really, 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 really ugly, bad place. And just continued to do it, continued to keep going. And yeah, I think that part of my life again, you've probably heard this too many times from me, but again, I couldn't go back to that. You become schizophrenic without sleep. I wasn't getting sleep during the day, and I suppose for yourself, you need time out from your children. That's an awful thing to say, but you do. You need that time to sleep to function, and I wasn't getting that. And yeah, we were at home in Kerry, but again, I suppose I was hiding a lot of how I was feeling. But gosh, there was nights where I felt like I just wanted to put the two of us into the car and just drive off a cliff. And that's an awful thing to say. And that's an awful, even thinking about that now, I know I would never have done it, but I wanted to do it. And yeah, that's something I probably have never admitted to anybody. But I remember we went to a family holiday in Kenmare during when COVID was letting the country open up a little bit. And I remember my sisters came with me, and neither of them have kids. And I was so angry and so cross because I wanted them to understand, but I never told them. So how could they understand, And I came down one night and they were like, "Oh, has he settled?" And again, I was an idiot, Rebecca. I did everything myself. I fed him. I changed his nappies. I was the one who bathed him. I was, even when I had two sisters and my mom in the house, and no, I had to do it. Was it a lot of like what Ben has been through? And, I wanted to be everything for him, and I couldn't be.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, and you said as well that you didn't let anyone at school know what was going on because of pride, and pride follows through with your family as well. Like, you still don't want even your husband to realise you're failing sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. You do.
Yeah, and it is failure. Like, it's been a whole journey of...
And it's not failure. It's not failure. Yeah. It's what you think in your head is failure, but it's not failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah,
you don't know because you're just agreeing with me for the sake of it, but it's not failure. Do you know what I
mean? Yeah. You have this idealistic view of what motherhood should be, and I just felt I wanted to be great at it. I wanted to be good at it, and I felt I was never I never got there. And I was never building up a relationship with Ben. Like, it took an awful long time for me and Ben to have a relationship. And that was a very hard pill to swallow. It really was. But like, Rebecca, he is the most amazing, beautiful, smiley, happy boy there is. Like, for all he's gone through, like, if somebody could watch what he's been through, like, it's phenomenal. He is the most phenomenal child. He deserves everything that life gives him, and I hope it does. Like, we've gotten to a great part in our life. Like, he started to walk in July of last year, actually. My God, we're nearly at his first year. He was 21 months. So we were like, I mean, he's not, it's not too far off of when the latest time he should have hit this milestone. And I'm not comparing him to anybody, but like, he was never meant to walk. He took 3 steps towards me, and I was sitting in our old rental, and I've sat with my legs out, and we had a little poof leather stool in the middle of the sitting room, and it was about 3 steps to me, and he fell into my arms, but it was 3 steps, it was everything. Things I'll never forget them. I will never, ever forget those moments.
But you got him there. Never. Do you get that? You got him to those places, like the pull up, the steps falling. You did that.
I know.
So it's not failure, because failure would have been a whole different situation, and your strength got him there.
Yeah.
But you have to accept that. You have to. I know you probably don't accept it, but you'll have to accept that you're the one.
Yeah.
Like, you're saying, you baited him, you fed him, you were up every night with him as a mother. But as a mother, you got him to where he is today.
Yeah, I know. I suppose. Yeah, I just feel like it's like everything in life. You get to a certain point and you feel like, there is such a joy. I just feel like I need to keep, you want more and more and more and more. And like, our next hope is that Ben will say something. I'd love to hear mommy or mama, or like, we've never heard mama, we've never heard dada. I would just kill. We've both had dreams about Ben saying his first word. I've heard his voice. I would love to hear his voice. He's 2.5. Again, like, at the moment, services have closed down. Look, it's not their fault. They're amalgamating at the moment, but we haven't had services, and it's so hard to find therapists at the moment. They all seem to have either had closed shop for COVID and now have a backlog of people. And there's a lot, I suppose, we've started love signs with him, but he doesn't take to quite a lot. And he's a very busy child, Rebecca. So I suppose they've queried, is he on the spectrum? Again, that was a very hard pill to swallow. I don't know. I see a few traits of autism there, and children with West syndrome are I suppose they're predisposed to autism. Not all of them, but there is a percentage that is. Again, I suppose he is young. I know I've listened to some of your podcasts, and with a parent that had an autistic child that was diagnosed quite young. But I just want Ben to have time to come off all this medication and see where we're at then. Am I in denial? Probably a little bit. Am I hopeful? Yes, I am. Part of me, like I work with in special education myself, and I just yes, autistic children are amazing, and their brain works differently, but it is a hard pill to swallow. I'm not going to lie, and I feel a lot differently for the parents that I have had over the past 20 years in teaching. My understanding of how to be a better advocate for them has just gone from strength to strength. I understand a lot more where they're coming from. You go down to the playground, and Ben is very vocal, and vocal in the sense that he's nonverbal, so he doesn't speak, but he will scream with excitement, and he'll get looks. And sometimes you feel like just I try and tell as many parents around me, and I don't know why, it's just to make myself feel better that they're not judging me as a parent. And you do feel judged. You do feel judged. And there you go into protective mommy mode, and you just want to cocoon Ben. And you don't want him or you to be judged because you know what you've been through. But it's a real tough journey. It's a real tough journey. I don't even know where I was going with that, Rebecca.
No, but I know exactly. Like I seen, Aaron McGregor. If you follow her boy is nonverbal, and he got into the car seat by himself this week, and I think he could be 5, and he got into the car seat, and she was like, I will come on and talk about it. She was like, but this is so hard. This is like that. Him getting into that car seat is a huge thing for me. Huge. And you huge. Jesus, all the money in the world, this is still happening.
You can't change it.
Like you can't change it. You can't.
I know. And Rebecca, I will often say that. I remember when we were going through fertility treatment, we thought we couldn't get a car. We were trying to fix it, and we couldn't fix it. And we thought, do you know what? We'll buy a car and we'll feel better. We bought a car. I remember people going, oh, look, you have a new car, blah, blah, blah. And I felt so angry inside. I was like, I would give this car back in a heartbeat if I could have a baby. And it's the same with the house. Like, people are like, oh my God, your house is amazing. Like, if somebody said to me tomorrow, if you lived in a camper van for the rest of your life and Ben will walk and talk, would you give up your house? It wouldn't even be a conversation. I would give up the house in the morning. I just want, as long as he's happy, and that's everything in life. It's as a mom, that's all you want is your kids to be happy, and healthy. Health is everything. As I even used to say that about my dad, those who don't have to walk in the doors of a hospital, they will never ever realize how good they have it. They'll give out about the simplest things. And again, I'm guilty. I've been there. But if you don't have to deal with health issues in your life, you have everything. You have everything. You don't need anything else. Like, as long as your family's happy and healthy, that's everything.
And then what is the future for Ben now? So where is the next 6 months, next year for Ben?
Okay, so we're starting Montessori, which is a huge step. I can't believe I will be. I used to always say, what is wrong with parents giving their lovely, precious children to me? And as a junior infant teacher, I understand it. I am going to be a mess come September, but he's only going to go 3 days a week. To begin with, and we'll see how he is. And they have been phenomenal. They have gone about getting an SNA for him. It's not set in stone yet, but it will be. Please God, he's a child that will need quite a little bit of extra help in Montessori and just monitoring, I suppose. He won't sit down. He's just, I think developmentally wise, he would probably equate to maybe a year less. So he's 2.5. Developmentally wise, he's probably a year and a half. He will start back with his multidisciplinary team soon, I hope. We will be doing, like, at the moment we're doing law of signs with him and PEC boards, so it's like pictures. Just trying to, like, I'm hoping he's a very happy child, but I'm hoping, like, the more and more that he understands that he won't get frustrated when he can't tell us something. So we're using pictures with him in the hope that he will be able to use pictures. I'm hoping speech will come. I'm hopeful. I have to be hopeful. We have to be hopeful as a family that it will come. He is the biggest delight in my life. So, the love of my life. If you Google West Syndrome in Ireland, there is zero, zilch, nothing. And that was our experience, and still is our experience. And I don't want it to be another person's experience. I even messaged a girl today who was so lovely, she's from London, and she has gone through this, and she's out the other side. Her child is 7. He is delayed speech language wise, which a lot of them will be. But apart from that, he is your regular run-of-the-mill boy. And that's what I'm clinging on to.
Yeah, that gives you hope
with both hands. So yes, our future is uncertain, but there is hope, and that's what we're hoping. That's what we're clinging on to, definitely.
Good. When you said there that you were at your very lowest, what would you say to someone else who's at their very lowest point who could be listening to this?
I regret not saying it, I suppose, because it festered in my relationships with my own family and especially with Elle. I was very angry, I suppose my tolerance for people, because it was survival mode, Rebecca. I was surviving from day to day, and like, lack of sleep manifests in such awful ways. Like, you're psychotic, you really are. And we were also in the throes of building a house, so fire that in top of it as well. Something that I really, looking back, I suppose I just didn't care about it. All I cared was about I was living in the moment. Every hour, I just took it day by day, every hour by hour, trying to get through it. And it was like a hamster wheel, you go through the motions, but I wasn't, like, we weren't happy, it's funny. It's like we were the Instagram happy, nobody saw underneath. But I should have said it a lot sooner. We are very, very lucky that our marriage survived this. Very lucky. Like, it was dragged through the bush and back. Like, it was, and I'm like, any parents of special needs, not even special needs, any parents that have gone through children that have had, sickness and things have just gone wrong in their lives. it puts pressure on relationships. Definitely, kids put pressure on relationships, Rebecca. You know, as soon as you add kids into a mixture, they put that extra pressure. You have different parenting skills. You have, you know, different ways of saying things. But you add anything else into the mixture, and like the pot starts to boil a little bit. But we got there. Like it just goes to show how strong a relationship we had before this. Because like there were days that I'd say we didn't speak a civil word to each other. That's just me being honest. And yeah, it's been a journey. Yeah.
And I know you said it, that you would change, like you would give it back, and that is valid, but also you're in your beautiful home now, and you know, in a lovely place. Like, how long did it take you to build?
So we bought the site in 2000, actually before Ben was born. So we bought the site in July of 2018, and Ben was born that November. So we had great plans that we'd be in for his first birthday celebration, but that was not going to go too well for us. I think it took us quite a while to get the land signed over to our name. So that took us the bones of a year, I would say. Yeah, it was June, actually. It was June the following year. But then July, of course, Ben's diagnosis happened, and we just we were with this great company. We signed up with them. It was a design to build, they did everything. Yeah. Basically. And that's what we needed in our life. There's no way we would have gotten this done by ourselves. We don't know trades in Cork. So this was the easiest route for us to go. So we explained to them what was going on in our lives, and they were happy to step back for a little bit. And then I suppose Elle was the driving force for it. You know, I mean, we had to get going with it, and we met up a few times with KMC, and they drew up plans for us, and Elle was very involved with it, thankfully. But yeah, it was exciting, Rebecca, but I was in a different bubble, you know. I was in the Ben bubble. And that's all I could focus on. I found I couldn't focus on anything else. Just after turning on the light. But he was great. He was phenomenal. There's, as I said before, there's definitely no doubt in my mind that we wouldn't be in here without him. I actually, he's come to me with questions. All my answers are I don't care. And I know you mentioned my Instagram. I started, I suppose, through the throes of my psychosis, sleep deprivation with Ben. I kind of thought, it came to the stage where he had it out with me. He was like, look, you have to start caring, because this is costing us a fortune. And I suppose he was getting a bit frustrated, and I can understand now. I can understand why he was getting so frustrated with me. So I thought, I better put something together, started to get pictures together of things I liked. And if you saw my phone, I mean, it's just a case of Ben, maybe a house, maybe a picture of a house, Ben. There's so many photos, so many videos, so many screenshots of therapies for it's all to do with Ben. I mean, completely and utterly. I am going to have to go back and just start deleting an awful amount of stuff, because there's a lot of negative stuff there as well. There's an awful lot of videos of seizure related, and oh gosh, even thinking back, Rebecca, Ben used to have these other just a lot of things that were happening due to medication. He was having these weird laughing sessions, and I have pictures of that, and they're just weird. I mean, they're not your typical laughing. He's laugh constantly for maybe 10 minutes, just oddly. So I have videos, I have videos of eye rolling, I have videos of just him breaking out in rashes. It's just, I needed a place where Ben didn't feature for a while. I needed a place to put my house stuff. And I thought, okay, do you know what? I'll set up an Instagram. It wasn't for following. It was just, I wanted a space for me. And it started to become this place where I thought, oh my God, it's a nice place to be. And Instagram can have very, like, it can be negative in the sense that you can be following all these bloggers and they have everything, and you're like, you kind of sometimes can get sucked into that. And all of a sudden I was on a forum where it was, everyone was like backing the next person, and, you know, you couldn't have what the next person had because your house was different, or, you know, you have your own ideas, and I like it. It's so supportive. My gosh, I've met some beautiful, I mean, such lovely, genuine, and so genuinely happy for you. You know, those people that, they're just it's a really, really nice bunch of people. And my house Instagram, it like only follows home accounts. And then I have my personal one that just, you know, follows like friends and family and things like that. But yeah, it's a nice place to lose yourself for a little bit. Yeah. So that's the reason I set up that. I didn't expect to get followers, but you do, and that's okay too. I kind of do show snippets of Ben. I suppose it's like, it's a platform that I could share, that any platform I can get to share anything about West syndrome. I vowed that day that when Ben had gone through all that, I was like, you're not going to go through this in vain. I have to, whatever I can do to get the message out there. And it wasn't just, it didn't want our story to be getting whatever the spotlight. I just needed, in my head, it was like, if one parent can see that video of like Ben's seizure, and that was very raw videos I put out in that YouTube video, that it was a week of infantile spasm awareness week with UK. It happens the first week in December every year. And like, I was like over and back with Elle. I was like, will I do this? Won't I do this? And I thought, if one parent sees that and thinks, actually, like, my child was diagnosed with reflux, and like, I'm looking at this video and I can see like that's like, you know, if one parent can get to an A&E and say, this is what my child has and I need immediate medication. Like, if one parent can, you know, if it can make a difference in one parent's life, our job is done. Because searching through Google, you get nothing. Like, you really don't. This is our case 2 years ago anyway. Like, we searched high and low, and all we were getting were the antiquated things about that Ben wasn't going to live past the age of 5. And it's so not the case. And that support group saved our lives. It really, really, really did. And I would be forever grateful to them. And if that's the one bit I can do back for them is bring awareness to this, then that's what I'll do. So I do show snippets of Ben on it, and yeah, a little bits here and there. But again, it's pride. Instagram is one of those places where, like, you'd have people put up pictures of the kitchen being clean and things are shoved into a cupboard, you know. And it's the same with Ben. I will show you bits that he's running around the place, but there's hard days as well. I have another friend, very close friend with a special needs child, and you know, we definitely get each other, and it's good. You know, we have our voice messages on a daily basis to just get each other through the day. And yeah, it's nice to have that support too.
Elle, on that note, we leave it there.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sitting down with me and telling me Ben's story. And as you said, if this can just help one parent to realise that that's what's happening with their child.
I know. Thank you, Rebecca. And honestly, I've said this to you through text, and I hope I've done Ben's journey justice.